Hey guys, welcome to my review of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. I think I don't like that name, to be honest, but because I don't think everyone know what a dial is, and Destiny I don't think suits really the movie, but whatever. That's the name they chose. This movie is directed by James Mangold, who you might remember from Logan. You might remember him from Walk the Line. He also directed, I think he directed two Wolverine movies, maybe. I'm not sure. I mean, he has directed a bunch of things, like a wide array of movies, like musicals and dramas and movies and everything. And I kind of like his directing style, so I was very enthusiastic about watching this movie. And of course, I do like Indiana Jones. However, I'm going to post the video at the end of this one, the little box, because I did a video several years ago, I think, where I talked about the white savior complex in Indiana Jones, among other movies, of course. And this was especially prevalent in the 80s, maybe 70s, late 70s, and the 80s and the 90s, where white people were always the heroes in every single movie, and it was always a guy, and it was always a straight guy. And you might call doing the opposite woke, but I don't think it's woke if you reflect the human population. Basically, I think it's wild, for example, that this movie doesn't really have any strong female characters and leads. Basically, the only female lead in the movie is Phoebe Waller-Bridge's Helena, who is daughter. It's Indiana Jones's goddaughter and the daughter of one of his friends. But to be honest, the performance is not really that great, because I do feel that Phoebe Waller-Bridge tends to do the same character every fucking time she acts. So she's not really anything special. I mean, I've never seen Fleabag, which is the series that put her on the map, basically. But I'm not really interested, because I do feel that she's always the same, and I think it's a little bit boring. However, I have seen that many people are criticizing this movie, saying it feels like a downer. And I won't really. I try not to. I will try not to delve into spoilers, but I have to say that I don't really mind. I mean, yes, the movie portrays Indiana Jones, of course, as Harrison Ford is. Harrison Ford is a man in his 80s, and he's older. He has lived a full life. He has done so many things, and so has Indiana Jones. And Indiana Jones finds himself in a very rough spot in his later years. And I think it's very important to portray that in movies, because we don't really see that many older men, older anyone, to be honest, older than 60, I mean, in movies. It's really weird and rare, and not very frequent. I mean, in the 50s, 60s, movies always had, of course, a white male lead, and it tended to be an older man and a younger woman. And in this case, it's a much older man with no woman, because he has been he's alone. Let's just say that. I'm not going to delve too much into spoilers again, but yeah, he finds himself alone. He's retiring. He's not in his best moment, and many people have criticized the movie, because they always they remember the Indiana Jones of the 80s movies, ignore Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I mean, not ignore it, because it is actually referenced here in this movie. But those first three movies, they were done in the 80s, and I think that the people saw things differently back then. I mean, there are many discussions that were not being had. I mean, people were not talking about women's rights as much as they are now. Me Too and all of that has happened, so I think that's important to know or to acknowledge. And the many things have happened also with different ethnicities, with African American people, with indigenous peoples, with everyone. In this day and age, you do I expect, I think, movies to reflect the human population again, to reflect what people actually look like. And yeah, many people were not really happy that this Indiana Jones is kind of sad, he's kind of depressed, he's not really in his best moment, because in those movies, in the old movies, he was always the hero. He was always the one that knew what to do at every time, and even if when he was scared, he was one step further than the rest, and he was, couldn't be vanquished basically, and people love that. But I think that doing that type of movie today is very complicated, because I think most people wouldn't really buy it. I mean, people would be like, "Are you really telling me this 80-year-old man is doing all the things that Indiana Jones in the 80s is doing, and in smiling and being all cocky about everything?" That wouldn't make any sense today. And people, I mean, many people are criticizing the movie, saying they wanted that. And I'm like, are you sure? Because that wouldn't have made any sense. And I do think that not everyone in the world loves these movies. I mean, contrary to popular belief, not everyone loves these movies. So I think that they were trying, the producers and the studio and everything, Disney, wanted to make a movie that was a little bit more broad in appeal and trying to tell some other story with this character. Many people feel it's a betrayal of the character. Why do they change things? They should have stayed the same. But I don't agree with that, because I think characters, like humans, should evolve. I mean, people have the argument that the characters are characters and you can make them do anything. So if you wanted Indiana Jones to go to space and save the world, you could. And yes, you could, of course. But would that make sense? Wouldn't that be continuing the white savior complex that all those 4 movies actually had in them? I would have hated that. And this movie has nothing of that white savior complex, because in this movie Indiana Jones is just trying, first of all, to survive and to mend his mistakes, and that makes him so much of a human. And by the end of the movie, I was happy how the movie ended. I mean, people are divided on how the movie ends, but I think it's beautiful, and I think it really breaks your heart at a point. But then I mean, the final scene is just gorgeous, and you wanted that for that character. He deserves it. So I had a great time watching the movie. Is it perfect? Of course not. I mean, some of the aging effects on the character, I didn't like them, because you really could notice that it was fake. First of all, I mean, it's better than in Rogue One, for example, but it's not perfect yet. And someone pointed out that the voice is the voice of Harrison Ford in his 80s instead of Harrison Ford in the 80s. And it does make a difference, and I do think they can change that. So I don't know why they didn't, but the visual effects are not the best part of the movie, to be honest. It's not insane in that area, but I do think the work in sound design, for example, in production design, is gorgeous. It's kind of minimalistic at some points, but it's very, very well done. The action sequences, there are some that are really, really good and really entertaining, and others I couldn't really care that much. And I think that there's a couple, that there's a chase scene, for example, that goes on for a little bit too long, I think, and they added things in that scene that didn't really need it to be there. So there are things like that you're like, okay, you can scrap this whole part of the movie and it would have been the same, and you could have talked about something else. For example, many people are also criticizing that archaeology is not being portrayed as glamorously as in the first movies. But I always had a problem with those movies of Indiana Jones's, that archaeology is basically plundering other cultures and it's stealing. And there's a scene in this movie in which Phoebe Waller-Bridge tells to Indiana Jones to his face, "You're a grave robber." And he's saying, "No, no, no." But she's like, yes, you are. You're not different than anyone else that does this. And she's right, to be honest. He grabs, the cross from I don't know what in the Last Crusade, and he almost takes the cup of Christ, and the Ark of the Covenant and all of that. And who gives you the right to take all of that? I mean, the cup of Jesus Christ should remain in wherever it was in that movie, in Turkey, but it was made in Jordan, of course, or the Ark of the Covenant. It should have stayed where it was. I mean, after getting it from the Nazis, it should have been returned from where they discovered it in Egypt, not take it in a museum or guarded in Area 51. I mean, that I think is horrible. And I think this movie could have done the job of talking about archaeology today, basically. I mean, the movie is set in the 1960s, late 60s, but it could have done the work of saying, you know, archaeology today has been criticized a lot because we are now reflecting that these countries that were the powers formerly just stole a bunch of shit from all the colonies and of the countries that they stepped on. So, for example, I mean, there's a huge discussion right now of pre-Columbian artifacts and paintings and things and objects that were taken from the Americas or Africa during the colonial times and even before, a little bit before that. And it's like, why is all of that in Britain or in Spain or in France or in Germany? Like, we can take care of our own shit. Even Greece has this problem. I mean, many of the most beautiful statues of ancient Greece are not in Greece, are in London for some fucking reason. It's like, really? You don't trust the Greeks to take care of their own shit? It's wild. It's insane. I mean, many beautiful paintings and things that have been created, for example, in Asia, are not in Asia. And it's insane. It's like, really. One thing is to trade things amongst, you know, the museums and all of that. That's a common practice, but the rest of the things is stealing, and there's a lot of other shit behind it, of illegal things. And I think the movie could have addressed that, and it would have made him, you know, a little bit even more real, which I would have liked, to be honest. It was very interesting. I really enjoyed the movie, and that a final half an hour maybe, it's amazing. I mean, I didn't expect the movie to go there, but it went there, and it's just so good. I mean, I really enjoyed it. There are some characters that, again, there's a kid in the movie, and it's like, fuck that kid. Like, why is the kid there? It's so stupid. It just to appeal to children, for them to go and watch the movie. But who cares? Like, I don't care for children in movies in general, but this one had anything to do there. But yeah, I mean, I would have wanted a stronger female lead. I would have wanted a little bit more of diversity. I mean, they go to fucking Morocco, Greece, and I think something else, Italy, I think it is. I mean, there are like brownish people in those countries. None in this movie is like, really, are you crazy or what? I mean, it's kind of stupid at this point. So yes, there are many things that are wrong with this movie, but there are many things that are actually right, and I did enjoy it. And I would really advise you to go, especially if you have seen all the other four movies. I think they are all very entertaining, even with their flaws. So go and watch these movies. Very entertaining, and I had a great time, to be honest. And my theater, my thing, it was packed. It was full of people, and I hadn't seen that. I always go to the same one, to the same multiplex. It was packed, and I had never seen it like that from even before the pandemic. It was really wild. So just go and watch it and make your own opinion about the movie, and don't let people just tell you what it is about or how you should feel about it. So thank you so much for watching this video. Please comment down below whatever you think, like this video of course, and we will see each other soon. Thank you so much. Goodbye.